Today we are going to explore an art that was born with old-school video games. An art that will challenge your patience and your meticulousness. Yes, I am talking of pixel art. If pixel art has a unique look, the drawing process is still pretty close to regular drawing and painting. Your knowledge of the principles of design, color, light, but also shapes all apply to this medium. The workflow to produce a character or any scene will be the same as with painting. We start with a sketch or a blocking. We then add shadows and lights. And we refine the piece with more strokes and using compositing techniques. Pixel art does have some particularities. As we draw using the small squares that make up our screens, the pixels, we face some constraints. How can we draw curves using squares? Here's the first issue we are going to face. Another difficulty resides in the low resolution of pixel art assets. How can we create the illusion of volume on a tiny canvas? A good mastery of silhouettes and the ability to come up with subtle color nuances is essential in order to make quality pixel art. You will also need to be very patient. Yet, there are some useful techniques that are going to facilitate our discovery of the world of pixel art. We are going to see some of them in this video. Coming up with great silhouettes is hard in pixel art. Most notably, it is no easy task to keep track of the big picture when we draw little squares one by one. Because of that, it is critical to always keep a copy of our canvas at a 100% zoom level. That way, even when we zoom in, we can still keep an eye on the final result. Most image editing software possess a navigator that can play this role. Others also allow us to duplicate the active document. In order to get clean outlines and to create the illusion of curves, we have to use patterns. We could almost talk about routine here. We move 2 pixels to the right, 1 up, we repeat that, when 1 to the right, 1 up, etc. If we reuse these patterns throughout our pixel art, we breathe some unity in it in terms of form. And if you recall, that is actually an application of one of our fundamental principles of design: repetition. There is no math formula though that will cover all your needs in terms of drawing patterns. You will have to experiment and practice pixel art to find the schemes that are going to fit your needs. Number 2. Alpha lock. Once we have established our base shapes, just as with painting, we can lock our layers alpha. AS Sprite has an option to paint in such a way that transparent pixels are not affected. On Photoshop, as we have seen in one of the first how-to game art, it is possible to freeze a layer's alpha using the / key. We can also proceed in another way, using the magic wand tool. We first select a color or a set of colors, and we can then paint inside the selection. Number 3. Anti-aliasing. With pixel art, the shapes that we initially draw are going to be crenulated. If we want to refine our sprite's shading, we can use transition colors. We have to apply them to a few carefully picked pixels to emulate some form of anti-aliasing. We use this technique whenever the transition between 2 color zones is too abrupt. I personally prefer to work inside the darkest color of the two. As you can see, if we use anti-aliasing on the brighter color, this tends to make the transition zone look heavier. The simplest way to use this technique is to place 1 transition pixel at the end of every straight line that makes up our entire shapes. Number 4. Using filters. Pixel art requires a great time investment. Traditionally, it is all done by hand. Just as with painting, there is effectively no secret to polish a piece. It has to be done by hand. However, it is still possible to use filters and even some other tools to work faster. AS Sprite possesses 2 interesting types of filters. The first one produces a contour around an existing shape. It is very handy if we want to stroke our character once it's done. This can give it an interesting style. The second filter I want to talk about is the Sharpen filter. It generates lighter or darker colors along the edges of a color island. It offers a quick way to accentuate the separation between 2 colors and to pop its edges. This filter also works well with selection tools. Number 5. Tinting Shadows. Whenever I work on a new set of graphic elements for a game, I often design them as if they were lit by a white light. In other words, I use local colors in order to do my assets blocking. Once a graphic element is close to being done, I can always unify its shadows by tinting them with blue, purple, orange, all that thanks to gradient mapping. On Photoshop, gradient mapping is accessible as an adjustment layer. You just have to add the effect as a layer to open this layer's properties and to make sure that it only affects the shadows of underlying elements. If we put the gradient map at the top of our layer stack, we can globally affect the shadow colors of our whole creation. And number 6, some general tips to wrap it up. It is always hard to see the mistakes we make when we are drawing. We have seen that it's interesting to always keep a copy of our document at a 100% zoom level. But there is more. There are some other tricks we can use to bring our pieces' issues out. For example, we can change the document's background color from time to time. This alters the relationship between our character's colors and obviously the canvas hue. That way, we can both better see how colors work in a general context and how our colors relate to one another. This also affects our perception of the silhouette of our drawing. There's another essential trick for visual artists: symmetry. It is easier to see if we haven't drawn something straight or if some parts of our creations are deformed if we turn our painting around. It is a simple technique, but a very efficient one. That's it for this video. In the past How to Game Art, we focused on general techniques, so I thought that pixel art could make some fresh content for you. It is an art that requires a bit of patience, a lot of patience, but also some patience. And we'll get back to it in the future. Pixel art is very interesting for those of you who don't have a graphic tablet, because you can just do pixel art with a mouse and a cheap computer. If you like the tutorials, please consider becoming a subscriber. That way you'll be notified whenever I release new content. That said, I want to thank you kindly for watching. Be creative, have fun, until next time.